Hi, it's Friday afternoon as I record this, so I thought we'd talk about something lightweight, like the potential death of the enterprise software industry. So there's been a certain amount of chatter lately, mainly in the financial press, which is an interesting point that I'll come back to, about the fact that generative AI means that nobody will need to buy software anymore because they'll just be able to vibe code their own as they need it. Just-in-time delivery of business software, if you will. And while it's undeniably true that people are vibe coding themselves all sorts of useful software and that generative AI is becoming part of the software development toolchain at a very rapid pace, I don't think those two trends add up to the death of the enterprise software industry. Let me expand a little bit on that thought. So, the key distinction here is one of time. If you need something ephemeral, one shot, you need to do a thing once, you need to do it for yourself, you yourself are going to be able to judge whether the thing has been done or not, then yes, the power of generative AI means that you absolutely can vibe code yourself a one-shot tool that will do the thing, that will format the data, that will create the output, whatever it is that you're trying to do, and that will absolutely work. That's not enterprise software. The problem with enterprise software is the enterprise part more than the software part. Most enterprise software is not actually technically that complex. It's transforming data, it's reading data from a database, it's writing it to another database. We know how to do these things. The problem, the difficulty, the reason it takes a long time and a lot of people and therefore a lot of expense is the complexity of the enterprise business processes that are encoded in that software. So you're not going to be able to vibe code yourself up at all because you're not going to be the judge of whether what you've vibe coded, what the chatbot, the agent has returned to you is what's needed. And this fits with a couple of other things. There's been an interesting manifesto, I first saw it shared by Charity Majors of Honeycomb fame, the O16G manifesto, which talks about how the software engineering process and practice has changed because of the introduction of generative AI. And Charity's point, in as far as I understand it, so disclaimer, I'm not a software engineer. I've actually never worked as a software engineer. I've been in other parts of the production process for my entire career. But Charity has long advocated, you should be able to do the thing that everyone's scared of, deploy on Friday, because you should engineer your entire process such that deploying on Friday is no longer scary. The reason people don't want to deploy on Friday is because if something breaks, well, you've ruined your own weekend and probably the weekend of many other people who will now be cross with you. And so received wisdom is, you can probably wait until Monday to deploy that fix. So if it goes wrong, everyone's in the office, you're not burning people's weekends, etc. The counter-argument is, if your process is set up right, you should be able to deploy continuously, all the time, including on Fridays, Friday afternoons at 5 p.m. even, because you have high levels of confidence that an individual deployment can't break prod, that you have other parts of the chain that are going to catch problems, that are going to alert you, that you're going to be notified if something goes wrong, and the blast radius will be sufficiently contained, and you will have options to roll back whatever happened. Gen AI doesn't really help with much of this. You can vibe code a whole lot faster. You can turn yourself into the mythical 10x engineer by using these tools, but you still have to do the rest of the work. And in the field of enterprise software development as well, a lot of the work is not in the coding, a lot of the work is in capturing the requirements from the people who are going to be using the product, the thing that the code does. That's where it comes to my specific area. So I work on a tool which has a low-code, no-code interface. The whole point is that there's a graphical development environment. The pitch is that if you are a domain expert, you understand your process well enough, you can probably either do the thing yourself, if it's a relatively simple process, or you can at least have a conversation with a more technical expert colleague who is going to help you build what you need, but you'll both be looking at the same thing at a graphical representation. The idea that some people have of vibe coding is that that domain expert, that business expert, is going to sit themselves down and use a chatbot, an agentic development system, what have you, to vibe code an entire enterprise software app based on their spec, on their requirement. And I don't think that's going to work out. At a very basic level, if the thing spits out a couple of thousand lines of Python, is the business domain expert, who in this scenario is not a programmer, are they going to be able to evaluate that? Okay, so maybe we get to the point that nobody's reading the code, that the process itself is taking care of validating it, and we're looking at the outputs, the outcomes, in order to be able to validate it. It's probably not going to be just that one person. There's going to need to be a whole set of people involved who can do the user acceptance testing, who can validate that the thing can be signed off to deploy in prod. Even if the stages of the delivery are automated, the gates, the checks, are staffed by other human domain experts. And that part of the work isn't actually accelerated by the vibe coding. So it is, to be clear, I'm not down on automated code generation. It is very valuable. We use it in all sorts of places. We also implement it in the product to accelerate the work of the people who are using our graphical development environment. It's going to change the enterprise software industry. It's going to remove some bottlenecks, but it's also going to highlight other bottlenecks that existed in other parts of the process. As with a lot of these technological transitions, they are forcing functions to unearth the things that we always knew that we should be doing, but there was always something more important, more urgent, and so we kicked that particular can down the road. GenAI has this accelerationist nature that it forces people to confront the bottlenecks that always existed, but because they were downstream of other bottlenecks, could always be, the resolution of those bottlenecks could always be postponed into the dim and distant future when it would be ideally someone else's problem. Now suddenly they're under the spotlight because they are the thing that is not only slowing down the process, but is slowing down a process where everything is being pushed by the bright promise of Gen AI that's going to 10x everything. And if you promise 10x and you're delivering 0.1x improvement, then that's not ideal. You have to have a very good explanation as to why and a plan as to why you're going to resolve that. That is going to be the interesting transition, and there will be disruption, but it's not going to be, the asteroid hitting the enterprise software industry and only tiny little mammals are going to be left scurrying around underfoot. With Gen AI toolkits, that metaphor got away from me slightly. I think I need some more coffee. I've got a couple more meetings this afternoon, and then I'm going to get to my weekend. I hope you have a productive week, weekend, whatever it is when you're watching this, and I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.